How to wear greens for the whole month? Ask this eyeshadow palette. Hi, welcome to the Art App, a place where we get the most out of our eyeshadow collection. And today I want to give you the third update on my project No Pen Left Behind, where I have to use every shade of randomly chosen palette. And as you remember, this March I got the Muse from Cosmic Beauty. And let me tell you, I get so much fun playing with this eyeshadow palette. Using it consistently helped me to open my eyes how this palette performs beyond the first impression. I started noticing both good and not so great things about this palette, which I missed after just swatching it or using here and there. But let's leave those thoughts for later and talk looks. So this is the very first look that I created with this eyeshadow palette. A combination of green and pink, very spring appropriate. I used Muse and Inspire across the lid, Sweet Pea in the inner corner, and then blended Willow out toward the outer edge with Water Lily. Now, Muse and Inspire are technically on the opposite side of the color wheel, so I expected a lot of blending drama, but no, they work together perfectly well. I think maybe it's because of the golden specks that both shades have, so they kind of unite and tie them both together. That's why the transition is so soft, and this is what I get consistently from this eyeshadow palette. A very nice, smooth, easy blend, which is honestly my favorite thing about this palette. Okay, so the next one is a full forest green look. I mean, the majority of the palette is green toned, so that was an obvious thing to do. I started with Water Lily, then proceeded with Inspire and Patina, deepened everything with Pine, and then blended it all with Filigree and Nouveau. I have such a thing for a good monochromatic look. I think there is something so elegant about building up color through layering your eyeshadows. And once again, the blend here is so smooth that whenever I turn my head, I get a glimpse of kind of multichrome effect, which technically it's not, but nevertheless, it looked so cool. Now let's talk about the look that I personally call a sunset look. In this look, I used Admire in my inner corner. It might look here a little bit too orange, but that's because I used concealer as a base instead of my usual Urban Decay primer potion, and sometimes that makes eyeshadows to oxidize. Usually it's not this orange. For the outer corner, I went in with Rosewood and united everything with Ambient in the middle. I used Haze throughout my crease, and I think Petal ended up in the inner corner. I use it a lot as my inner corner highlight. Along my lower lash line, I mixed Whisper, Amethyst, and Lustre. Now, I don't usually wear yellows and oranges because it's hard for me to work with them, and I don't know how to blend them properly. They give me a lot of hard time blending. But when Admire was paired with Rosewood or a pop of purple, they work together. Definitely try out this combo. So the third look was a little bit out of my comfort zone. I wanted to try something graphic, so I went for a bold crease liner. I sketched the line using my ColourPop purple pencil, then I set it with Fig and blended out with a mix of Petal and Sweet Pea. Sweet Pea also went into my inner corner, and I placed Whisper all over the lid. This is a lavender shade with a kind of silver sparkles hint, and it smoothes the texture of the lid like nothing else. I also used Fig again as a liner, and I topped it with Amethyst, which I also pulled a little bit into the outer corner. Mental note to myself, use Whisper all over the lid once more, because it's a hidden smoothing gem of this eyeshadow palette. Here is one of my favorite everyday looks from this palette. I used Rosewood as a soft eyeliner. I love doing that whenever I'm not going full glam. And either Ambient or Antique on the lid. I think I here used Ambient, which has a more maroonish base with green and red sparkles. You can also use Antique, but it's more like a sheer topper. I got Haze into the crease and ran Antique along the lower lash line. It felt very casual, but still super sparkly. And this is what I love about this palette. You can go very bold, very colorful, and keep it low-key and very soft at the same time. Now for something a little bit more daring for me. I tried to do Halo Eye using Whisper and Luster in the center, Pine and Nouveau on the inner and outer corners. I wasn't sure how it would turn out, but I actually loved it. I've been using this palette for over a month, and here are my final thoughts. First of all, the color story is extremely versatile. You can go bold, bright on the one hand and very neutral, variable on the other side. Even though the palette has a lot of greens, somehow they work together with the rest of the palette. You have olive greens, grass greens, forest greens, a lot of dimension, but somehow they work perfectly well with purples, reds, and yellows of the palette. Secondly, some shades pull a little bit cooler on my skin that I see them in the pan. For instance, rosewood. Originally, I thought it would be very close to red ochre from ABH, but it is actually more purplish brown red than brick red. The same goes to haze. Ever since I finished Warm Taupe from ABH, my holy grail crease shade, haze fill in the gap. It is a very beautiful shade to blend out all the other eyeshadows in this palette. And nowadays I reach for this palette, for this shade specifically, also for Sweet Pea, Petal, Muse. Anyway, also I wanted to mention Fig. It is an amazing shade for a wing eyeliner. It is very easy to use, no kickback. You just use this kind of thin brush, dip it in, and you're ready to go. A small drawback with this palette, at least with my palette, is the fact that Muse, Lust, Inspire, and Antique got a little bit of hard pen. Maybe that's because I used finger to apply them, but it was quite unfortunate. Though it's not very bad because when I use a stiffer brush, the pigment still comes through. One thing that I really appreciate about these eyeshadows is how easy they blend into each other. Even the tricky colors like blending pink into green or green into purple can get very muddy. With this palette, it just happens effortlessly. I'm not a blending pro. I need a lot of time to build up that seamless blended look, but with this palette, it's just easy, and it is a huge win for me. Another thing about this eyeshadow palette is if you're a fan of huge pigmentation within one swipe, this eyeshadow palette is not for you. It's definitely on a more buildable side, especially the lighter shades like Petal, Sweet Pea, and Softly, which I'm actually wearing today. And by the way, I think I haven't told you about this eye look. I have Softly all over my lid, haze in the crease, and Pine along the lash line as an eyeliner. I think it looks very nice. I tried to do this eye look because the last time I did something similar, I got a lot of compliments. So thank you so much. Getting back to the pigmentation of Muse palette. The payoff always starts very soft and I would say small, but you can build it up to get a bigger intensity. Also, this isn't one of those palettes with crazy multichromes or glittery sparkles. What it does have is truly gorgeous satins. As someone with slightly hooded and textured lids, they work magic for me. And honestly, I feel so bad for giving this palette just 1 month because it deserves more time and more looks. I had so much fun playing with it that I even consider picking Winter Wonderland if it is in stock during Black Friday sale. If you have Winter Wonderland, let me know, is it as good as this palette? I am all ears. For now, thank you so much for your time. You served me so well this month. It's time to pick a new eyeshadow palette for April. I don't have any preferences. I'm totally fine with whatever I get this time because I've already got Muse palette for March, which I was very excited. So I don't want to break my luck. Let's see. Ooh, I got a color pop that's taupe. Let me grab that palette. Here is That's Taupe. It's an amazing everyday palette and I'm really excited to use it. But As you know from this video, I won't use it as a standalone palette in my No Pen Left Behind project. I'll pair it with Natasha Denona Mini Retro to definitely get the most use out of my eyeshadow collection. I think together they really complement each other, and I'll have an array of amazing looks, which I'm so looking forward to. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I'll see you next time. Bye!